Hey everybody, I want to go over 4 more teaching tips, and these 4 are a little more theologically based than the others, and I think you'll understand what I mean by that as I go. Um, Number 8 is this: you are a herald, not a salesman. And what I mean by that is the herald is appointed by the king to take the message and faithfully and accurately deliver it to the people. He is not responsible to try to make them all believe. In other words, while you need to be winsome and godly and respectful to people, there also has to be somewhat of an attitude of, here's the truth, you can take it or you can leave it. That's ultimately not my responsibility. Now, salesmen, and by the way, I've been in sales and my father's been in sales. I'm not slamming salesmen here, but there can be a tendency to think it's my job to make the sale, therefore I'll alter the message to sell everybody on it. So Paul warns us about that. Here's my statement. Once I think it's my job not only to speak the message, but to make them believe, I am in danger of altering the message. So Paul warned Timothy, for a time is coming when people will not endure sound teaching, but having itching ears, they will accumulate for themselves teachers to suit their own passions. And there are plenty of teachers out there who will tickle ears, change the message to gather a crowd. And I think one way to keep clear of that is to be reminded that we are heralds of the gospel, not salespeople. Similarly, there will always be 4 soils. Jesus told the parable of the 4 soils. The seed, which represents the gospel, lands on 4 different soils. The path, which represents the hard-hearted hearer, doesn't even penetrate. The birds come and eat the seed. They're the people who are not interested at all. Then the 2 middle soils, the rocky soil and the thorny soil, there's initial growth, but on the rocky soil, there's no depth, so the sun comes out and they die. That represents, at least my theology would say, not believers who lost their salvation, but those who responded maybe emotionally, but it wasn't true salvation, and a little bit of time showed that it was true. Thorny soil represents those, or the plant grows up and the thorns choke out its life. That's the cares and the preoccupations and the distractions of life. Again, showing that it was never real. But there is the good soil. And I always find it interesting. The good soil produced a crop 30, 60, 100-fold. So there's plenty of room for different Christians to produce different amounts of fruit. But the sign of salvation is fruit. If there's no fruit, just the growth of the plant, but no fruit, it was never true to begin with. Now, a lot of preachers, teachers, think that, again, it's their job to make all the soil believe. No, it's your job to faithfully proclaim the word. Yes, you want to help them and encourage them and try and persuade them and pray for them, but ultimately you have to let the first 3 soils be non-productive soils. Or again, you're in danger of altering the message. Once we think it's our job to be not just sowers, but synthetic seed producers, in other words, our seed is going to be believed by all 4 soils, then we are in danger of compromise. So another call to be faithful to the word. Number 10, his sheep hear his voice. So don't confuse them by messing with his words. In other words, if we start thinking it's our job to make all the soils believe, or it's our job to sell everybody on the message, what about, okay, I'm going to use this word, the elect who will be drawn to Christ by the clear-cut preaching of the gospel? If we start messing with the message so everybody will accept it, then the true sheep are going to be confused. Jesus was talking to his audience, and many of them did not believe. And he says, "But you do not believe because you are not part of my flock." Notice he does not say, "You're not part of my flock because you don't believe," but the reason you don't believe is you're not part of my flock. How do we know from the masses who are chosen to be part of his flock? Well, he says in verse 27, "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me." The voice of the shepherd speaks clearly. The voice of the teacher speaks clearly, and those who are being drawn to the shepherd will believe and follow. Once again, a call to be faithful students and teachers of the word. All right. One last one, and this was kind of hinted at in our discussion questions. Being too clever empties the cross of its power. This is actually a picture of a church where the mini series was on motocross, and the pastor was having guys jump over the pulpit and do tricks up on the stage. And not only is that tacky, but I think it's relying way too much on showmanship and cleverness. Paul in 1 Corinthians 17 says, "For Christ did not send me to baptize, but to preach the gospel, and not with words of eloquent wisdom, lest the cross of Christ be emptied of its power. For the word of the cross is folly to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God." So if you read between the lines, Paul was being criticized for not being an eloquent speaker like some of the other teachers and some of the Greek philosophers. And they were basically saying, "Paul, could you step it up? Could you add some more eloquence and some more Greek wisdom?" And he's saying, "No, I don't want the cross to be emptied of its power." Now, I don't think that means we should be sloppy. I don't think it means we shouldn't work hard at giving the best message we can. But I do think once we start relying more on eloquence and gimmicks and showmanship, it is possible to empty the cross of its power. In other words, the people walk away being more impressed with the sermon, the preacher, the teacher, the motorcycle jumper than the gospel. All right. So think about these things as you're preparing. I will see you next time. God bless.